Thank you very much. I believe it was George Bernard Shaw who said, all we learn from history is that we learn nothing from history. So demonstrating that we do learn something from history, thus proving himself to be a big, beardy idiot who knows nothing and who also ruined My Fair Lady by taking all the songs out. I contend that if history teaches us that history teaches us nothing, then if we persevere, it must also teach us some other things as well, possibly some kind of coded message about what will happen in the future that we'll be able to abuse in some way to become kings of the world. What I think. I'm Richard Herring. I was chosen to present this show because I studied modern history at Oxford University. Yeah, that's right. Look impressed. Though, to be honest, I think studied might be too strong a word for what essentially amounted to me sitting in my room on my own for 3 years eating crisps. Yeah, history can be a bit dull and dusty, so to help us lubricate its dry and chafing passages, we've gotten ourselves a rock and roll band. It's Christian Reilly and the Entente Cordiales.
That was then, this is now. It's the show that looks at what happened this week in history. That was then, to see if it can help us understand the world today. This is now. Before concluding, though it obviously can't.
Don't worry, they're just messing around. They all love history, and I love these guys, and, you know, they love me back, don't you, fellas? Yeah. You know, you and me, Christian, we're very similar, you know. We're like two peas in a pod.
I'm not sure we are, Rich.
Don't put yourself down, Christian. You're easily as good as I am. What have you been up to this week?
Well, me and the guys, we've been out on the road, we've been gigging, we've been partying with fans, taking drugs, the usual. How about you?
Well, I've been mainly writing comedy sketches about historical events that happened this week, the vast majority of which are too poor for broadcast. But will nonetheless be broadcast anyway.
Very similar to my week, then, Richard.
Oh, I did have a Lemsip on Monday, which is a drug. So let's have a brief look at some of the major historical events that happened this week in history and hear a couple of those sketches that are officially too poor for broadcast.
6 October 1829, Stephenson's rocket is the first ever train on the Liverpool to Manchester Railway, giving rise to the first ever train spotter.
Stephenson's rocket, tick, finished. What am I going to do now?
3rd of October 1935, Italy invades Abyssinia. Its leader, Haile Selassie, is forced to flee, along with his brothers Very and Quite Selassie.
That was then, this is now.
Obviously.
Each week on the show that all the cool hep cats are calling Twttin, I'm joined by an historical expert to help me with research in History Corner. So will you please welcome the star member of my local pub's quiz team? I can think of no higher honour than the fact that if I were to ever get on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, then he'd be my phone a friend. Not that he's strictly speaking my friend as such. He's a bit of a nerdy geek, and I'm not. I'm not. It's Brian O'Green!
You're very kind, you're very kind. Thank you, Richard. It is true I am, for my sins, still the reigning Shepherd's Bush Master Brain champion. In fact, as a joke, some of my friends refer to me as Master Brian.
Some of your friends?
Well, some of the other men at the quiz night.
Do they call you Master Brian?
No, but I'd like it if they did. Oh, maybe you could call me Master Brian.
Nope. Brian is here to help me in my continuing quest to prove that history is sexy. If you're listening last week, you'll know that history's already helped Christian to get off with a real lady.
I'm not sure it was history that did that.
Oh, come on, it was. It was the sexual power of history alone. Historical facts are the greatest aphrodisiac known to man. Watch this. On the 9th of October 1959, Macmillan won a third successive election for the Tories. Girls, who wants to do it with me after the show? See, they're so aroused they can't even speak.
Really, Rich? Come on, there's nothing in history that was remotely sexy.
The Nazis were. The Nazis were sexy.
No, Brian, you can't say that.
Oh, they were, though, Richard. The Nazis were incredibly sexy.
You can't say contentious things like that on the BBC. Look what happened to Andrew Gilligan and Kilroy. We are Tony Blair's lapdog slaves and must say nothing controversial. I want to make it very clear that no one is saying that the Nazis were sexy.
Well, I'm saying that. The Nazis were sexy.
Brian, I said you could only be on the show if you agreed not to talk about the Nazis.
I'm not saying what they did was right, Richard. I'm just saying that evil can be sexy. Look at the Borg in Star Trek Next Generation.
And Star Trek. I only said you could be on the show if you promised not to talk about the Nazis and Star Trek.
How can we not talk about the Nazis and Star Trek? In the end, it all comes back to the Nazis and Star Trek.
We're trying to make history seem cool, and neither Nazis or Star Trek are cool. Though admittedly for very differing reasons. So, Brian, you've been looking through the history books while I've sat around eating crisps. What historical stories have you found for us this week?
Well, in October the 5th, 1916, Corporal Adolf Hitler was injured in World War I.
So I don't want to hear another thing about the Nazis or Star Trek for the rest of the show, including all the movies and the spin-off series The Next Generation, Deep Space Nine or Voyager.
What about the short-lived 1970s cartoon series?
What, the one with that thing with the kind of lion's head?
That's the one.
Yeah, no mention of that.
All right. Well, on 4th October 1582, the Gregorian calendar, instituted by Pope Gregory XIII, replaced the previous Julian calendar. The new calendar leapt straight from October the 4th to October the 15th, which at the very least must have been very annoying for anyone celebrating a birthday on those dates.
I'm glad I hate those idiot Librans. The Catholics claim the calendar was an attempt to compensate for discrepancies in the dating system, but let's see if that's true in a section of the show I like to call What Really Happened.
That was then, this is now.
What really happened?
All right, Pope Gregory, here are the new calendars you ordered.
Great, I've been looking forward to this.
Just sign here, please, Your Grace.
Yes, sorry, Your Holiness. New calendars?
Yes, the calendars all the other popes have done are rubbish. Do you see the Julian calendar? January, Pope Julius sitting on his throne looking austere. February, Pope Julius on his throne looking more austere. March, Pope Julius on his throne looking pompous and austere. I could go on.
There's no need.
No one wants that on their garage wall. And Pope Bonyface's calendar was horrific. Painting after painting of him with his horrible bony face. Ugh.
Oh dear, I think I can see where this is going.
But take a look at mine. There's skill. January, me giving my address at St. Peter's Square, from behind, and look, I'm just wearing my pants. And I'm looking round as if to say, ooh, you caught me.
Oh, yes, it's very good, but...
February, cleaning the Vatican topless, wearing high heels and stockings and suspendees.
Oh dear, I feel slightly queasy.
March, a bit of a comedy one. Me on a toilet in a monkey suit, eating a banana. April, me baking some cakes with cherries on the top. And look, they're covering up where my actual chest and nipplies are.
Well, you know, almost covering, Your Holiness. You do have rather large man bosoms.
I know, that should shift a few copies, don't you think?
Yes, are you sure it's sending out quite the right message?
Yes, Catholicism is boring and tedious enough already. Without all these boring calendars, we're constantly telling people what they must do, what they can't do. It's all so square. They deserve a little bit of a reward for adhering to our killjoy rules and regulations.
Wait. Look at this one, October.
Yes, I like that one. Me playing tennis without any pants on for some reason and scratching my bum.
No. The dates, look. Look at the dates. It goes straight from October the 4th to October the 15th. There's over a week missed out.
Well, it's like that on the original copy Pope Gregory gave us. We faithfully reproduce what he did.
Well, thank God we can't send them out like this.
Well, we can't do them all again. They're all hand-painted by baby monks. Anyway, you've signed for them now.
It's okay. It isn't a mistake. After all, I'm infallible. I'll just make a proclamation. We're not having October the 5th to the 14th this year. Send the Gregorian calendars to the shops straight away. So, that's what really happened. And anyone who says it isn't is lying. Now it's time to go over to TV's Emma Kennedy for this week's Births, Deaths and Marriages.
Time to find out who got wet, bread, or dead with TV's Emma Kennedy.
Hello, I'm TV's Emma Kennedy. That's right, you probably remember me from Planet Mirth. Anywho, enough of my bragging. Let's take a look at this week's felicitations, commiserations, and amalgamations and find out who got a jumper they didn't want from their auntie this week. Oh, the 9th of October sees a happy 64th birthday to John Lennon, the musical genius with the amazing imagination. He could imagine there was no heaven. He could imagine no possessions. And most amazingly of all, he could imagine that Yoko Ono was in some way attractive or talented. But not all historical figures will be celebrating this week, because some of them were dead. The 9th of October 1988 was a sad day for fans of the rotary engine, as it saw the passing of Felix Wankel, inventor of the Wankel rotary engine, the royalties from which are entirely used up every year cleaning the graffiti off his gravestone. Farewell, Felix Wankel. I, for one, see nothing amusing about your name, and had you lived, would have been proud to have become Mrs. Wankel. But let the tears of sadness turn to tears of joy, because it's a happy 8th wedding anniversary to Clark Kent and Lois Lane, who were wed in the Superman comic on 6 October 1996. I hope Lois wasn't too disappointed on her wedding night. From what I hear, it's not just when he's flying around that Superman is faster than a speeding bullet.
Sorry, Emma, what do you mean by that exactly?
Well, I'm saying from what I hear, when it comes to the bedroom department, Superman perhaps arrives a little quickly, if you catch my drift.
From what you hear? Where have you been hearing these rumours of the sexual inadequacies of a fictional superhero?
Well, I mean, I haven't exactly heard.
You said you had.
Yeah, but, you can imagine if he flies that fast...
No, hold on. Let's ignore the fact that he isn't real for a second. Clearly, in everyday life, Clark Kent / Superman is able to vary the speed he's travelling, sometimes walking, sometimes flying extremely fast. So why should we presume that suddenly, when he's in the bedroom department, as you call it...
Yes.
...he loses this ability to control his velocity?
Yeah, but, it's funny... If you could imagine...
On the contrary, based on his other skills, I would imagine that Superman would be amazing and sensitive and, when necessary, ardent lover.
Yeah, but...
Silence, Kennedy! Your joke was rubbish on every level. Back to TV where you belong. You mawkish termagant.
I'm not mawkish!
You are mawkish.
I'm not!
You are. You're as mawkish as Robin Williams, dressed up as Mork from Mork and Mindy, but reciting all the lines from the film Patch Adams.
Ooh, that's mawkish.
That's how mawkish you are.
She didn't mention that the 7th of October was the 104th birthday of Heinrich Himmler, the Reichsfuhrer of the SS and head of the Gestapo.
No, well, there's a good reason for that, if you think
Nor
about it.
that October the 8th is the birthday of Todd Bryant, who played Clark in Star Trek V, The Final Frontier.
Brian, this is your final warning. Now it's time for a song from Christian and the band.
Oh, great, I love music. Christian, can you do In the Living Years by Mike and the Mechanics?
God, I'm sorry about Brian, Christian. He's a bit of a nerd. He's not my friend, though. I hate him.
He's all right. Brian, did you see that episode of Star Trek The Next Generation where Picard is assimilated into a Borg?
The Borg.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah. Of course, I have all the Star Trek episodes, Christian, on all formats, including Laserdisc.
Well, that's amazing. Me and the guys, we love TNG. Maybe we should hook up later.
I've got one of the episodes of the Star Trek cartoon on video.
No thanks.
Even I think that's rubbish.
Anyway. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, on this week in 1990, Great Britain entered the exchange rate mechanism. I think we can all remember where we were when we heard that news. On October the 8th, 1990, Great Britain's first day in the ERM, the trading was described as hectic. I thought it'd be a challenge to write a rock song with the word hectic in. It's like a real mum's word, isn't it? Like traipse.
Where were you when stockbrokers had to shelve their pessimism? When Great Britain entered the exchange rate mechanism? Yeah, while normal folks were out there flying their kites in the park, real men were bolstering the value of the pound against the German mark. And trading was hectic. Yeah, trading was hectic. Yeah, we ain't seen the likes of this since the pound let the trade be hectic. Did you spare a thought for poor old Jerry Pilkington West? Got a wife and kids in Richmond, but he's chained to his city desk. Just trading hard, trying to keep the hopes of a 6% bandwidth alive. But now the governor of the Bank of England's just called him up and told him it needs to be more like 2.5. Well, some guys left the office at 4:15. Yeah, but Jerry's gonna trade until greater economic convergence is achieved. Even if it means traipsing back in at 8:15. 'Cause trading was hectic. Yeah, trading was hectic. But our boys on the stock exchange didn't get dyspeptic. Now you can be a Europhile or a Eurosceptic, but when the trading got tough, the tough got hectic.
Christian Reilly and the Entente Cordiale.
And now, what I've decided to call Conspiracy Theory Corner.
Oh, Brian, you can't do this.
Why not? Has someone got to you? Who's pulling your strings, Herring?
No one's got to me. As important and groundbreaking as this show is, the powers that be have not yet seen fit to influence its content, or indeed listen, or give us enough money to have a proper lunch. You can't do this because all conspiracy theories are rubbish.
Convenient. Perhaps a bit too convenient. This is Conspiracy Theory Corner, and I found something very interesting. This is my theory, Richard. Just look at all the people who've died this week in history. It's a very long list. St. Francis of Assisi, Rembrandt, Tennyson, Janis Joplin, Clement Attlee, I could go on.
Please don't. So what are you saying, Brian?
All these famous people, Richard, dying in the same week throughout history. Coincidence or something more sinister?
Coincidence?
There's no such thing as coincidence.
Why did you give it to me as an option, then?
I thought you'd pick the other one. Now, I have two theories on this rash of deaths.
As many as that?
Numero uno, a bizarre time delay suicide pact. Two, perhaps even more disturbing, some sort of immortal time-travelling serial killer, a bit like in the film Highlander.
And I wonder, how do the Nazis come into this?
Well, that's the most sinister thing of all, Richard. They don't.
Well, thank you very much, Brian, for making me realise what a mistake it was to book you.
Was then, this is now. Sniff on this if you like the smell of history.
Any actual verifiable stories you found, Brian?
Well, Richard, on the 9th of October 1983, Helen Moss joined the Brownies.
Oh, come on, that's a bit pathetic. What's so good about that?
Well, Helen was 83 years old and became the Brownies' oldest ever member.
Hang on a minute. It's all right for an 83-year-old woman to join the Brownies, but when a 37-year-old man wants to join the Cubs, oh no! Suddenly society says that's wrong.
Is this any particular 37-year-old man you're talking about, Richard?
No.
This is now the show that nobody's calling apart from Richard Herring.
Twttin.
Now, October was a very busy month for Henry Ford. In 1908, he first produced his famous Model T Fords. In 1913, he introduced the world's first assembly line.
Would you like to know an interesting fact about Henry Ford, Richard?
I would like to know an interesting fact about Henry Ford, yes.
He also invented the charcoal briquette.
That's not that interesting. He had the idea of putting charcoal in a briquette form. It hardly compares with the somewhat more influential decision to mass-market cars at an affordable price. I think ultimately that's what he'll be remembered for.
I'm not sure people enjoying a barbecue would agree with you there.
Well, they would if they'd had to travel more than 200 yards to get there. Of course, Henry Ford was famous for his amazing sense of humour and his hilarious one-liners, a reputation that I'm not convinced he actually deserves.
Gentlemen of the press, let me present to you the 8th wonder of the world, my new Model T Ford automobile.
So, Mr. Ford, how much would this little baby set me back?
Well, the sticker price is a cool $825.
Wait.
That is an awful lot of money. I don't earn that much in a year.
Well, you'll have to stick to your push bike, Charlie.
Oh, my God. That's very funny, Mr. Ford. You are a very amusing fella.
I love the paintwork, Mr. F. What other colours does she come in?
Well, Bud, you can have it in whatever color you like, as long as it's black.
Oh, that's good.
I'm writing that one down. Hey, I think you've got yourself your first customer.
Well, hello, ma'am. Can I interest you in my Model T Ford?
Oh, I should say so, Mr. Ford, but the black's a bit funereal for my taste. Can I have it in red?
Well, as I was just telling the boys here, you can have it any color you want, little lady, as long as it's black.
That's quite amusing. But joking aside, I'd like a red one. Or yellow at a push, but not black. It's a bit depressing.
Well, that's no problem, miss, because you can have any color you want, as long as it's black.
I thought he could have any colour he wanted.
No, really. It's not enough just to keep saying, I can have any colour I want as long as it's black. I don't want a black one. $825 is an awful lot of money, and I think for that outlay, I should be able to have any colour I so desire.
Well, you can, little missy, as long as the color you so desire is black.
No, shut up. Stop laughing at that. It wasn't even funny the first time. For a start, black is not actually a colour in the true sense of the word. Black is the absence of colour. So your joke doesn't even make sense.
I said you can have any color you want.
No, shut up. You're just trying to use self-satisfied humour to cover up for the fact that your car only comes in one shade. If you were honest, you would say you cannot have any colour you want because, stupidly, we've only made it in black, which isn't, strictly speaking, a colour anyway.
I'm not sure it's as catchy.
Say it!
No, you give me a Chinese burst.
Say it!
We only do black, and that isn't a color.
Good.
And I'll go out and I'll buy a tin of red paint and do a red one for your madam.
Yeah, see? That wasn't so hard, was it?
Of course, that will make the sticker price $830.
$30? No, I don't care. I'll have it in any colour. As long as it's black.
Obviously.
This week saw the 115th anniversary of the opening of the legendary Moulin Rouge.
With Nicole Kidman?
No, the film didn't go on that long. It just felt like it. We have in the studio with us Madeleine LeBlanc, one of the original Moulin Rouge dancers. Well, no, that can't be right. How old are you?
136.
That's amazing.
It's all down to dancing. Dancing keeps me young.
Well, that's great.
I am very limber.
Lovely.
And I can still get my legs over my head. Look.
Are you all right?
Oh, I'm a little stuck, but still, as you can see, a girl.
A very old 136-year-old girl.
Oh, the Moulin Rouge. Oh, I'm sexy, no?
No.
Alluring.
No.
You want me, but you cannot touch.
Oh, you can if you like.
No, get off. You're 136.
Not a little touch. My skin, it feels like expensive toilet paper.
Not on brand. Charmin.
You're supposed to be here giving us an insight into Fantasy Heckler, Paris, not acting like a randy Galapagos tortoise, which you look a bit like as well. Come on, you must have met some pretty amazing people in your time.
Ah, yes. My customers included Toulouse-Lautrec, Van Gogh, Oscar Wilde. Oh, what a stag night that was. All of them there to see me, oui.
To see you wee.
To see my famous striptease. I know you want to see it too.
No, really, there's no need.
Music!
Oh, God. Don't look, Brian. Brian?
I've gone blind.
Bob, put your clothes back on. Oh, God, you're 136 years old. You're old enough to be my mum's 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 mum.
Oh, the English, they're so uptight and prudish.
Oh, dear, that's gotta hurt.
Don't worry, that'll heal.
Get off me. Leave me alone.
Oh, tell me another historical fact. It's like you said, knowing bits of history makes you attractive.
But I don't want to be attractive to actual bits of history.
Come on, you know you want it.
Help me, Brian.
Sorry, Rich, I'm going back to Christian's. Apparently, he has a Laserdisc player.
I'll come.
No, you stay here with your girlfriend. I wish I could swap places with you, but, you know, fair's fair. It's your turn.
She looks like Zelda off of Terrorhawks. Well, actually, I always fancied a bit, to be honest.
Come on, Richard. You should try everything once. And how many 136-year-old women have you slept with?
I don't kiss and tell. Anyway, that's all we've got time for. That was then, this is now. Thanks very much. Good afternoon.
That was Then, This Is Now starred Richard Herring, Emma Kennedy, Danny Robbins, Dan Tetsell, Christian Reilly and the Entente Cordiales, who are Damien Caldwell, Charlie Round Turner and Martin Kane. It was written by the cast and Mark Dady, Toby Davis, Chris Pell and Nice Mum. The broadcast assistant was Trudy Stevens and the producer was Liz Anstey. That was Then, This Is Now as a Celador production for BBC Radio 2.